Did Daniel Craig ruin No Time to Die? Well, when I say ruin, you might have guessed that I'm referring to the ending. And so if you haven't seen No Time to Die yet, switch off this video right now. But seriously, go and see the movie. I think is it out in Australia now? Hopefully. Those poor Australians, I can't believe that. Anyway, if you haven't seen the movie, switch away now. Spoiler alert. But if you have seen the movie, well, James Bond dies in the end, doesn't he? And it's really weird. This has divided the fandom in sort of three distinct groups. There's one group which I believe consists of me and Joe Darlington, which is, yeah, we're okay with this. You know, would have preferred it to be a happily ever after, but as it goes, it's all wrapped up neatly, and I think No Time to Die is pretty much like a perfect movie. Then there is a much larger group of people who are like, I love No Time to Die, but I hated the ending. I wanted to change the ending, and that seems like the majority of Bond fans. And then there are some people who are just like, I hate the entire movie, the ending ruined the entire movie for me, it's my worst James Bond film ever. And it's so interesting how there are these three distinct groups. But what I find even more interesting is if you read a lot of the articles that are going around now. There was one I saw posted on Facebook by the Ian Fleming Foundation. It appears like James Bond was always going to die. They call the movie No Time to Die, but he was destined to die before they even started filming, as far as I can tell. And I believe that it was one of the stipulations that Daniel Craig had about coming back to play Bond one last time. It was like, okay, if I come back and play Bond one last time, my requirement is that he dies at the end. And I think this was a really, really strict stipulation. And I think because of that, Eon, the company behind the Bond films, went in lockstep with him. Because, let's be honest, you know, Spectre was a disappointing movie. And I can see, you know, Daniel Craig might not have had the best experience working on that movie, but I can imagine there was always this temptation to come back and do it right, like one last time, and also try and sort of wrap everything up and create something really special with his run as James Bond, rather than end on a sour note. So I can see the appeal of him coming back there, but I can also see the appeal for him personally wanting to make a statement and wanting James Bond to die at the end, wanting his James Bond to die at the end. And I can also understand why Eon, you know, supported him with this demand, because if you don't have Craig, you don't have Bond. Like, of course there was always going to be another Bond movie, but I think Eon must have realised that, you know, Spectre was kind of disappointing, and for them, the opportunity to fix things, and I really do think that's what No Time to Die does so effectively. It makes the earlier movies where they had weak points so much stronger. I think the opportunity for Eon was so obvious that they were willing to go along with this as well. And from that point, the die was cast. Danny Boyle was the first director attached to go to No Time to Die. And, you know, there's a big hoopla about the fact that he built like this missile silo set. They got really, really far into the process, and then they left over quote-unquote creative differences. And I honestly feel that maybe those creative differences were, well, that creative difference was the fact that Bond died in the end. I think it's also interesting that Dan Romer, the composer, left for, I believe, creative differences. And I think that's because, you know, there were other things that were stipulated, like having the On Her Majesty's Secret Service music in there, that, you know, didn't gel with him. I find it a really, really interesting process, because this is where, you know, all of these creative inputs eventually butt heads. And I think James Bond is so sacred to all creative people that, you know, Danny Boyle must have been like, if I have to do this, I don't want to make a Bond movie. You know, Bond movies were to him one particular thing, and he had to compromise on something so distinct as James Bond not dying. He didn't want to do the movie. And Dan Romer, as a composer, you know, if he had to have John Barry's music from 50 years ago inserted into what he was producing, he didn't want to do it. And I can respect both of those opinions, but at the same time, I also understand why Daniel Craig and why Eon wanted to push this, and the fact that they had to push it so fast. It just opens up so many different creative possibilities. The No Time to Die we got is so different to the No Time to Die we would have got if Danny Boyle had directed it. And it's almost as if the ending is only part of that. I mean, can you imagine if, if they rewritten it that James Bond and Madeline went happily off into the distance? We might have had a movie directed by Danny Boyle instead of Cary Fukunaga. And to me, No Time to Die was like such a perfect movie. I think that Danny Boyle's version would have been a disappointment. I think we might have ended up with less of a movie. Not that Danny Boyle is, fantastically talented director, but his vision would have been different to Cary Fukunaga's vision, and I wouldn't want to sacrifice what Cary Fukunaga created for anything. And likewise with the soundtrack, Dan Roma is a really, really good composer. He actually does the music for, I don't know if it's all of them, but he did the music for Far Cry 5, which is a video game, and it's so interesting to see like the complexity of video game composing. Really shows how talented a composer he is, because there are so many different ways music is featured in that game. But I loved what Hans Zimmer did with the soundtrack, and it's like, if you had the movie, that we were originally going to get when things started moving in 2018, it wouldn't be the movie that we got in the end. And yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to sacrifice that either. I've listened to the No Time to Die soundtrack, the original soundtrack, on repeat for like the last 2 weeks. And however good Dan Roma's version would have been, I just can't imagine it being as perfect as Hans Zimmer's one. So there we go. It seems really interesting, but it seems like this entire thread and all of these different creative things that occurred all started with Daniel Craig being the one who made the decision that his James Bond had to die at the end. And it would be really interesting if sometime in the future I ever run into Daniel Craig in New York City or something, and I probably wouldn't speak to him because I'd want to be cool. But if I did, I'd be like, hey, so it was your decision to kill James Bond at the end of No Time to Die. It'd be really funny if he was just like, no, that wasn't my decision at all. Because I'm convinced it is. And I'm just convinced that, he is the one who led to the film that we got. But I enjoyed that film so much. And also, I think he's earned it. If Daniel Craig was the one who decided that James Bond had to die at the end of No Time to Die, I think he has earned that right from us Bond fans. Because, yeah, we might not like it, and to some people it might have ruined the entire movie. But at the end of the day, Daniel Craig's run as James Bond has been so special, and it's had some of the highest highs in the entire 25 movie James Bond franchise. It's had, arguably some of the lows as well, but what Daniel Craig has given us over this course of 15 years, I think is so special, and has made such an impact in the lives of so many Bond fans like myself, that if that's how he wants it to end, I think Daniel Craig has earned that right, and I think that that it's one of the reasons why I am completely at peace with the ending of No Time to Die. I'm like, you know what, I might have done it differently, but I can respect why this choice was made. And to be honest, I respect it even more if it was Daniel Craig's choice and he was the one who, held the line and insisted it happened. If so, fair play to you. Thank you for giving us this incredible wild ride, and also thank you for giving us the ending, which is enabling us to argue about it constantly for weeks. I love it. Anyway, that's just about it on this particular thing, but I would love to know your thoughts. Just let me know. Did you like the ending? Did you not like the ending? Would you have done the ending differently? Yeah, I mean, for me, I would have preferred it if they had a happily ever after and he'd driven up into the distance. I think that would have made it the perfect movie. But I think aside from that, it's perfectly imperfect with the ending it has. Right, I will catch up with you guys later. Cheerio. Ciao.